I want to just, first off, I want to thank you for joining the Prayer Society or re-updating for another 6 months. Mark and I really do appreciate your prayers. Most of what we do around here depends on God's Holy Spirit verifying the truth of His Word. So thank you for praying. Thank you for caring enough about your family to want to see God's power being released in your children, in your home, in your relatives, and so forth. The first thing that we're going to ask you to pray about these next 2 weeks is our Sunday morning service. That people would come to the service expectant of what God's going to say to them, willing to submit to what God would want to say to them. That when visitors come to our church, they would sense the Holy Spirit. That when kids go to our children's ministry, that they would come out of the service learning something about God. And in that vein, I want to read something out of the book of Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes chapter 5, starting with verse 1. Guard your steps as you go to the house of God. In other words, you should be careful. And draw near to listen rather than to offer the sacrifice of fools, for they do not know they are doing evil. I was thinking about this the other day, and this first verse tells us to be careful about the kind of attitude we have when we go to church. So many people go to church out of obligation, just putting in time. And I believe that is what Solomon's referring to here when he talks about the sacrifice of fools. If somebody goes to church not expecting to hear from God, not willing to submit to what God may say to them, they're going and sitting there for an hour and a half is just nothing more than a sacrifice of fools. Jesus said that there were many people during his time that honored them with their lips, but their hearts were far from God. Matthew 15. So we want to pray, and this is pretty convicting for all of us, but we need to pray that we all go to church with an attitude of believing God's going to speak to us, an attitude of expectancy, understanding that we're going to go meet the Creator of the universe, that there is a fear in our life and for His Lordship, and a willingness to submit to God. Now let's keep reading, and that none of us are giving the sacrifice of fools. Verse 2, do not be hasty in word or impulsive in thought, to bring up a matter in the presence of God. For God is in heaven, and you are on the earth. Therefore, let your words be few. When we go to the house of God and God speaks to us, we have to be careful what we bring up to God. In other words, if God has spoken to us and we don't like what we hear, we have to be careful that we don't use our rationales and all our excuses and compromise to try to push aside what God would want to say to us. It all comes down to a willingness to hear what God has to say. So pray about that. Pray for yourself, that all those who come to church, the visitor, the man or woman that's been coming to church for 30 years, that they would come with an expectancy to hear from God and a willingness to submit to what they hear. We'd also like you to pray about our higher ground clubs and our sunshine clubs. There are 24 of them in public schools. They're going to be shutting down for about 3 months. Pray for these kids who, a lot of them will not get any Christian input for about 3 months. We need, Hank has asked us to pray. We need home fellowship worship leaders. We need to pray for that. We also need to pray for youth venture workers. We need more volunteers in our 4 centers. And we also need to pray about the building that's going on in this third building. They are working there every single day. We need to have this done before the school starts. We're so excited, not only about our junior high school, the facility for that, but Friday nights, we're going to have so much more room here. And also on Sunday morning. It's going to be great. God bless you. And again, Mark and I appreciate the almost 1,000 of you that signed up and are willing to develop a discipline of prayer and see God move in our church and in your life. God bless you.